What's going on, guys? I'm Brian, and we are back for another day of 25 Days of Disney.
I'm Jennifer.
I'm Julia.
And today we're talking about the 15th anniversary of Cars. Was June 9th of 2006, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Of when Cars came out. Stars Owen Wilson, Larry the Cable Guy, and so many other great actors. And I've actually heard a lot of people don't particularly think this is a great movie. I actually think this is my favorite Pixar movie. Like, legitimately, I think it's my favorite Pixar movie because it's not what you would usually see with the Pixar movies at that point. Because I don't think Incredibles have come out at that point, correct? The Incredibles come out in 2006. When did Incredibles come out?
It was like near around the same time, but it was either like right before or right after.
Oh, Incredibles came out in 2004, so I am wrong about that.
Oh.
I think it was I think it's because I think this is so simple. It's literally just it's the fish out of water story with Owen Wilson as Lightning McQueen. He's a superstar that gets put into this rustic, rundown country neighborhood. He's not used to doing hard labor. He's not used to having to be himself or having to be just a regular person with all of these basically misfits that are in this Route 66 town that nobody remembers anymore.
It's like the Island of Misfit Toys.
That is a good. That is.
If we're on the island of unwanted toys.
Also, I need to go get my Lightning McQueen item. So, sorry. I'm a huge Cars fan, so I got this. And
Mike's probably gonna be really mad that we talked about this without him.
Disney came out with this is the 15th anniversary pin.
Oh wow, I didn't even know they had those.
So if you see you can read it better. 15th anniversary radiator spray.
And we're at the date we're recording this, because we're not recording this day by day, obviously. They have just announced that they're going to be making a Cars series, which is going to be awesome. It's Cars on the Road.
Wait, I'm like, wait, what? I missed this.
Was this announced the other day for Disney Plus Day?
Yes.
See, my life's been too busy to pay attention to everything that they
Oh my God.
So, the legacy of Cars is still going strong after 15 years. They had 2 sequels. One nobody really wants to talk about because it really wasn't that good. And then Cars 3, I actually really enjoyed. I think that's probably the best third movie that I've seen from a Pixar film, because Toy Story 3 I really just did not like.
Yeah.
And I don't really think any other Pixar movie has a trilogy that's really that good. So, and now we have a TV series that's coming out, I believe, in 2023, if I'm correct.
You know, Cars is the perfect movie to create a series out of it.
Oh yeah.
I love it.
So it's what they had the merch. Here's the thing. I think this is almost, when it comes to Disney, this is almost the perfect thing to make merchandise out of. Julia has a stuffed Lightning McQueen, but then they can also make actual toy cars for boys or girls. Obviously, if girls want to play with them, but they're mostly probably garnered towards boys. They can honestly make an entire play set if they really wanted to. I don't think they have, of just Radiator Springs. If they really wanted to, they could make an entire play set of Radiator Springs and have all of the Cars characters. It's a fun movie. It's a simple movie that I think that anybody really could get behind. I think a lot of people didn't get behind it because it was simple, and I think a lot of people also didn't like it because it was very country. There's a lot of country elements in this where it's more, it's hard to explain, but it's very much rustic and farmland and stuff like that, where people like that stuff.
Mhm.
People like westerns and cowboys and stuff like that, but
Mhm.
this is more along the lines of being in um, modern day where people are farming still, but there's not shootouts, gunfights, stuff like that. It's more cars and it's
Mhm.
more
Like when they do the like tractor tipping, it's very
yeah,
kind
like
of like
it's very much old town, and
Mhm.
it's simple and it's a fun story, and honestly, it's a very beautiful movie to look at too. Pixar usually doesn't do too bad when they do this sort of stuff. Although now, if you go back and look at how they designed humans in the old movies, the '90s movies, and look how they do it now, it is
Very
frightening
true.
how they
And
are.
Toy Story. Oh my god, it looks like a robot.
But I think the legacy of Cars will probably live on for a very long time, and I don't really see it going away.
People also like Route 66. Like some people will on their bucket list, it is to drive on Route 66. This also is not going away, like you said, Brian, because it's so popular that out in California for Disney's California Adventures, which is across the street from Disneyland, they made a whole Cars land. So they rebuilt to almost scale of life size of Radiator Springs. You can walk down the street. They have the I forget what it's called. It's like it's a car race where you're in actual big cars with the faces and you get to race around the area. You go through the animatronics. There's different areas. And Disney World, in their Art of Animation hotel, there's a whole section that is just a hotel section devoted to cars.
Which we went to in 2019. That was awesome.
Outside you can pose by the cars.
You could go by them, so it feels like you're next to the life, like Lightning McQueen and all of them. Actually, interesting information I found about while they were creating Cars. So there was actually a different storyline in mind. I don't know if you guys know it.
No.
So it was supposed to be an ugly duckling type story where it was going to be about an electric car. So Cars started off as the little car or the little yellow car about an electric car that faces prejudice from its gas guzzling counterparts.
Oh my god.
They said that it was too like they couldn't create an entire movie out of it. It was the original concept about this car that felt left out because he didn't run like the other engines did, and they were going to make him like the ugly duckling and then do like a victory story from there, but then they changed the concept. So just
I can definitely see that this was probably a better concept. The other one probably meant more, but this one is a better concept.
Yeah.
Another thing that really doesn't get talked about that much, and it's mostly because it is all country music or old doo-wop music, is the soundtrack. The soundtrack for Cars is actually really freaking good. It's Shaboom is one of my favorite songs from it. They have Life is a Highway from Rascal Flatts. I believe Sheryl Crow's on it as well.
Yeah, James Taylor.
I can't listen to, ever since seeing that movie, I can't listen to Life is a Highway without connecting it to Cars.
Oh, yeah. The whole, I mean, the video games are fun because it's really just racing games. It's such an easy concept to continue doing, but Owen Wilson, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Owen Wilson, I will admit he's a good actor. He's probably a really nice guy. The only things that I've actually liked him in were Loki and Cars. And he's been, I probably say this is his most, if not second most popular character behind. No, I'd probably say this is his most popular character. He's been really interesting, and he's actually spoken very well about the movies. Same with Larry the Cable Guy, because when was Larry the Cable Guy in a good movie since Cars? Or at least a well-known movie.
He brought Mater to life. Like, man, the stuff he did, like, you know, the phrases. I know there was stuff probably that was improvised and some stuff Disney wrote, but just all of that stuff. If you just say like a line or something that's from Mater with Larry the Cable Guy, you know it's from Cars. Or if you see like a rusty tow truck that's brown, it's like, hey, look, it's Mater.
Oh yeah. Here's a funny, quick little story. So last year I sold a bunch of my old DVDs, and a lot of them were old kids DVDs that I had from back then, obviously. And there were three movies that I didn't get rid of. One was the original. One was the first Garfield movie, because I just have a spot. I have a soft spot in my heart for that movie, though it's terrible. One was an old Scooby Doo movie, and the third one was Cars. I will not get rid of Cars. It's still in my collection. It's a fantastic movie. I'd highly recommend anybody watching it. Show it to your kids. It's a fun movie. It's an easy movie for them to understand because they don't do crazy dialogue like you see in some of the newer Pixar movies, and they don't do like crazy concepts and like they do in some of the new Pixar movies. It's an easy story to follow. It's
what's the new one that came out? Soul?
Soul.
Soul and Luca.
Soul was the one where they had like very, very in-depth concepts.
Mm-hmm.
So like this is actually a really good thing that you brought up. So I want to say in Cars 3, they addressed that Doc like was not around anymore. Like he died. But they didn't go really like dark and deep into it, which is like I like how they did it in Cars and Cars 3 actually. But yeah, when you take a newer Pixar film, I think they're trying to get
psychological and emotional.
Yeah, I don't know. They're trying to get more like in depth with different topics, but I just heard that Soul was not really good for young kids to watch because they're not going to understand that stuff. It's all about death, basically.
Yep.
So it's how Cars did it. It's light. It's different. It's easy, and it is for kids.
Mm-hmm.
If I had to pick a movie that was probably more kids friendly from that early 2000s era, or not early, it's like mid 2000s era. Incredibles was fun, but it's still a complex movie for at least kids. It's a complex movie because you're seeing a lot of these superheroes get killed by the syndrome guy. You're seeing this guy who the wife Elastigirl really thinks that Mr. Incredible's cheating on her.
You're right.
So Cars, it's literally fish out of water. I have to learn to be better, and I have to learn that the world doesn't revolve around me. That's the whole moral of the story. But they do it in a very fun way where they're not even really talking. You see a lot of action. It's a lot of racing, but you could see the metamorphosis of how Lightning McQueen's character goes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's my favorite Pixar movie.
The other thing too is what they did is I forget what the technical term is when you bring something to life that's not when you humanize stuff. There's a term, there's a legit term for this.
I don't know.
There's a term where they say where you make something that's not human, you humanize it. Well, all of these other movies with Pixar, you can basically kind of say that borderline, like with Bug's Life, with Toy Story, all of this stuff, they brought things to life, but Cars, they really had to go beyond because it's a car.
Yeah.
You know, it's not an animal, it's not a toy, it's a car. So they had to figure out how are we gonna make, like putting the eyes on the windshield, making them move and talk. And so they really had to humanize that compared to like an animal and a toy is easy. Even when they make characters with humans and stuff for Inside Out, Luca, they're all people or animals, but this was like a thing that they had to figure out.
They really had to like humanize the mechanical object, and like the wheels are like the legs. Because I think at one point they show them like kind of walking and scooting with the tires. So
like crawling or creeping.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure at some point they Mater is sneaking up on one of the tractors to tip. And they had to actually animate him sneaking. And it's not just like him going up to it slowly. You can see him trying his best not to let his exhaust go out while he's going up to it. while he's going up to this tractor. It's a more complex. I mean, there's it's probably my favorite part of the movie. I think it's hilarious because they have these groupies that love Lightning McQueen, and they have the old lights that come out of the car where they go like this.
Oh yeah.
And literally, they flash Lightning McQueen because they flash their lights at him, but they're flashing Lightning McQueen. And kids will think, oh, well, they're just shining the lights on him, but
Yeah.
oh, like, oh, okay, well, they're showing their unmentionables on for Lightning McQueen, like
That's
how groupies
funny.
would in this, or at least in that era. I don't think they'll do it now. They might. I have no idea. You know what? You know what's funny is that with this movie that's really about talking cars, it's probably one of the more realistic Pixar movies because it's really super down to earth.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going up in space like Wall-E. They're not. They're
And it's
not,
actually a real place. Like Radiator Springs isn't real, but they're talking about Route
Route
66.
Yeah.
And in all these other places, it's like a made up thing. Like Bugs Life, they don't say, oh, this is the ground of Los Angeles. Or with Toy Story, they're not really giving us a city. Or like they're making up Dinoco. Like there's stuff, well, Dinoco from Toy Story is also in Cars.
Yeah.
But
Ratatouille is like the only movie where I can just think off the top of my head they say where it takes place.
Oh,
Like
yeah. It's like because they talk about California, they talk about different cities and stuff like that. And I mean,
so they put it in your like world, you know.
yeah,
it's
in
like
our world, but it's not because it's all cars that talk and it's like only cars. There's no people.
yeah, it's like the difference between Marvel and DC. DC is what, like, Metropolis is what the good of New York can represent, and Gotham is the bad of what New York can represent. In Marvel, they're just in New York. They're in a real city. So with this Radiator Springs, even though it's not a real place, you could definitely find that sort of place on Route 66 where there's just a single gas station, maybe a tire shop, and then maybe a knick-knack store, and then go off on.
That's so true.
And I've sounded like a broken record. I think it probably is the best Pixar movie, and it's not because of the high action or the great storytelling. It's because it's the most realistic, simple movie, even though it's about a talking car.
So if somebody were to go against you and say Toy Story is the best because that's what started it all, how would you argue against a Toy Story person that Cars is better than Toy Story?
So here's the thing. Everything is opinionistic, so that's what it is.
Oh, but I'd love to hear your opinion.
My opinion about Toy Story is that yes, it started, but going back and watching it as a film with a lot of stuff they do in that it can happen, but it's very adventurous. And it's very much a for a kids movie, it's kind of a thriller because you see more of these weird toys that Sid created that was very much scary. These kids are seeing this stuff and they're like, okay, that's really freaky. I don't want to see that anymore. With Cars, you don't see that sort of stuff. It's even though it can be considered an adventure movie, it's really not. This is what you would see in a typical day. If somebody destroys a road, they don't want to put them in jail. What are they going to do? They're probably going to make them be part of a chain gang that picks up litter on the road. That's what they did. But instead of picking up litter, they're fixing a road and they're paving a brand new road. And you can see how,
Go ahead.
Just watching the movie and seeing how these people haven't seen a brand new paved road and see how happy they are. That to me, that's the highlight of the movie when they're doing their little drive around on the strip. Just that little part of town and seeing how happy these cars are and seeing how happy they haven't been in forever. That's real life. That's
Not
stupid.
knocking a toy out the window. Where'd he go? Then they're at a gas station. Then they're at a pizza plant.
I thought of a really cool comparison, and it
Mhm.
just dawned on me. So as you guys are talking about Toy Story, so who are the main two characters we got out of Toy Story? We got Woody and Buzz Lightyear. So out of Toy Story, we got these two, like everybody knows who they are. They made all this merchandise. Sure, they made merchandise on Mr. Potato Head and everybody else, but it's Woody and Buzz Lightyear. Who do you got the main characters in Cars? You got Lightning McQueen and Mater. And in Toy Story, Woody does not like Buzz Lightyear right away. Because he's like jealous of him. He wants to be Andy's main toy, this and that. Well, I feel like in Cars, you got, remember like Lightning McQueen, he was annoyed by Mater at first and he didn't want to be in the town. And then they grow to be best friends, just like Woody and Buzz Lightyear.
Yeah.
Boom. I just that.
So it's, again, Toy Story is good. Don't get me wrong. I still won't put it as the best, but I still think that Cars is the more realistic. I think it's the more fun movie because even though Toy Story is the one that started it all, it's still a lot more adventurous than what you'll see. Cars doesn't like get taken away. You see that in the sequels with Cars when they're doing like the spy movie, which I don't want to talk about. That was terrible. And then you see it in like the third movie when they make it into a redemption sports movie, like how you see with Rocky and how you see with Remember the Titans and Rudy and stuff like that. This one is your basic, it's a basic movie. It's simple. But the thing is, with movies, sometimes the more simple they are, the better they are.
I think that Toy Story, this is literally a Toy Story versus Cars thing at this point right now, and I don't care because I'm going with it. I think that my opinion is that Toy Story being created and happening paves the way for Cars to be created because it's, when you think about it, it's kind of similar. They took inanimate objects, they took people's toys, and they gave them lifelike qualities so that they would get up, move around, whatever. And Cars, they're taking vehicles and giving them, like Jennifer was saying, these lifelike human qualities. And I just think that Toy Story paved the way for Cars, and that's why I couldn't even say one is better than the other because they just, I don't know, one led, I'm not saying it led right into the other, but it's kind of a similar concept when you think. And I love it. I love both of them.
Agree. I mean, no matter what, they're both great movies. The sequels are a little less to be maybe a little less to be acquired, but they're both great movies. The first Toy Story and the first and then the first Cars, they can be hand in hand. They can be 1 and 1A. It doesn't matter who puts them where they are. They're still great movies. But this is the 15th anniversary. Let us know in the comments how you feel about the Cars movies, whether you liked it, whether you didn't like it, and tell us how you feel, if it's the best or if it's not the best. So we'll see you next time for another day of 25 Days of Disney.